I come from a family of skeptics. The kind of people who laugh at horoscopes, roll their eyes at ghost stories, and think every haunted place can be explained by bad wiring, black mold, or mental illness. But somehow, I grew up different. Ever since I was little, I believed certain people carried bad energy. Not metaphorically, literally. I could feel it. Some people made the air around me feel heavy, thick, wrong. My grandmother used to say there were people born with an instinct for evil. She would spit over her left shoulder after arguments, keep a red thread around her wrist, avoid mirrors after midnight, and refuse to let strangers touch family photographs. Everyone else in the family called her paranoid. I didn't, because whenever she warned me about someone, she was always right. Maybe that's why what happened to me started long before I realized it. Long before the visions, long before the man. It started with the locket. At first, it felt like nothing, just a weird coincidence. That afternoon had been strangely warm for early May, so I left the apartment wearing only a light jacket. Huge mistake. By evening, the temperature dropped hard. Cold winds slammed through the streets in violent bursts, cutting through my clothes and freezing my hands so badly they hurt. I decided to take a shortcut home through the old library passageway downtown. Most people avoided that tunnel. It connected two streets beneath an abandoned brick building that used to be a public library decades ago. The ceiling leaked constantly. The walls smelled like mildew. Even during the day, it was dark inside, but at least it blocked the wind. The second I stepped into the tunnel, the noise outside vanished. No traffic, no voices, no wind, just silence. My sneakers echoed softly against the wet concrete while I rubbed my freezing hands together. Then something metallic struck the bottom of my shoe. Clink. A tiny object skipped across the floor ahead of me. I stopped. At first, I thought it was a coin, but when I crouched down, I realized it was jewelry. An oval-shaped silver locket hanging from a thin chain. The strange part was that the clasp was still closed. The chain hadn't snapped. It looked perfectly intact. So how did someone lose it? I picked it up and carried it out of the tunnel into the fading daylight. The locket wasn't expensive, cheap silver, probably fake. Its surface was covered in tiny scratches, like someone had opened and closed it thousands of times. There was an engraved design curling around the edges, small leaves winding around a thin stem like a dead vine. At the center was an empty socket where a gemstone used to be. Whatever had once been there was long gone. I should have left it alone. Honestly, I intended to. There was a tree beside the sidewalk near the tunnel exit, and I figured I'd hang the necklace on one of the branches so whoever lost it might come back and find it. That should have been the end of it. But when I wrapped my fingers around the locket one last time, something felt wrong. Not physically, not exactly. It wasn't heat. It was more like pressure. Like the object itself carried some kind of emotional weight inside it. A horrible feeling crawled up my arm. My grandmother would have called it cursed immediately. I almost laughed at myself for even thinking that. Still, I hurried over to the tree and hung the chain from a low branch. There, done. I stepped back. The uneasy feeling in my chest didn't go away. My palm still tingled where I'd touched it. I should have walked home right then. Instead, curiosity stopped me, because suddenly I couldn't stop wondering what was inside the locket. A photo, a child, a husband, a dead relative. The necklace swung gently in the wind, almost teasing me. No, absolutely not. I wasn't touching that thing again. Then the wind shifted, the locket hit the branch. Click. It swung open by itself, and I saw the photograph. I've spent years trying to describe that face. Nothing ever sounds accurate enough. It didn't look human, not fully. The head was swollen and crooked like melted wax. The eyes looked unfinished, two dark pits without visible pupils. Its mouth stretched too wide across the face, exposing uneven teeth pointing in different directions. Some were tiny, others were long and jagged. Warts covered the skin in thick clusters around the forehead and cheeks. Patchy strands of greasy hair hung down the sides of its nearly bald scalp. The entire face looked diseased, rotten, as if every infection, deformity, tumor, scar, and illness imaginable had been forced into one living person. I actually felt nauseous staring at it, and the worst part? The photograph looked old, really old. The paper texture, the fading, the discoloration. This wasn't some edited internet image. It looked authentic, real. Who would carry something like that around their neck? A sudden wave of disgust hit me so hard I slapped the branch instinctively. The locket fell into the grass below. Gone. Good. Let it stay there forever. I turned around and walked home as fast as I could without looking back. But something followed me. Not footsteps, not a sound, a feeling, like I had already made a mistake that couldn't be undone. Over the next few days, that feeling got worse. At first it was just anxiety, a vague pressure sitting behind my ribs. Then came the itching, right at the base of my throat, near my collarbones. I kept catching myself scratching at my skin absent-mindedly until it turned red. Everything else in my life stayed normal. Classes, laundry, groceries, phone calls. But underneath all of it, something felt wrong, like my body knew something terrible was approaching before my mind did. Then, the vision started. The first one happened in my bathroom. I was brushing my teeth one morning when I randomly thought about my grandmother. She'd died less than a year earlier. I missed her constantly. Sometimes memories of her appeared out of nowhere. The smell of fried dough, old perfume, rainy afternoons in her apartment. But this time felt different. One second I was staring at my reflection. The next, reality bent. Everything around me blurred like heat distortion. And suddenly, I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was standing inside my grandmother's living room, not imagining it, not remembering it. Actually there, the old orange furniture, the paintings on the walls, the plants crowded around every window, rain hammered against the glass outside. And on the windowsill sat one of her cactus plants blooming with a tiny white flower. I remembered that flower. They only bloomed once. The smell of frying batter drifted from the kitchen. My grandmother hummed softly to herself while making pancakes. At first, none of it felt strange. It felt real, like I had somehow stepped directly into a moment from years earlier. Back then, I hadn't known she only had a month left to live. That memory had once been warm, safe, until I looked outside. Someone was standing in the rain, perfectly still. Their clothes clung to their body, completely soaked. Water streamed down their face. Something about them felt deeply wrong. I leaned closer to the window, trying to see their features. And the second I did, terror exploded inside me. It was him. The same face from the locket. The swollen skin, the collapsed eyes, the mouth twisted into a wet grin. That disgusting thing was smiling directly at me through the rain, enjoying my fear. The moment our eyes met, the vision shattered. Everything dissolved. I was suddenly back in my bathroom, water still running, toothbrush on the floor, steam fogging the mirror. I stood there, shaking, trying to breathe, trying to understand what had just happened. Because one thing terrified me more than the vision itself. In the original memory, that man had never been there. I would have remembered him. Nobody could forget a face like that. Which meant something impossible had happened. Something had entered my memory and changed it. After that, everything got worse. The visions became more frequent, and every time they happened, the man appeared. Always inside old memories, always watching me, always smiling. The next vision hit while I was walking past my old high school. I slowed down for a moment, remembering how many years I'd spent there. Sunlight reflected from the windows, and suddenly the world tilted sideways. The street dissolved. A second later, I was back inside the school, not as an adult, as my younger self. I looked down. School uniform, black skirt, polished shoes. I was 16 again. The hallway smelled exactly the same. Cleaning chemicals, dust, old books. I remembered asking my geography teacher for permission to leave class. I remembered walking toward the bathroom. Everything unfolded exactly the way it had years earlier, until I looked in the mirror. Something silver reflected near my throat. A necklace. The locket. I never wore jewelry to school. Confused, I reached toward it. Then a stall door creaked open behind me. I turned and saw him. The man stepped slowly out of the bathroom stall. His skin looked diseased, wet. His yellow sweater hung tightly over his crooked body. His shoes didn't even match. One was a dress shoe, the other looked like an old boot. The smell coming off him made me gag. He smiled wider. I screamed and lunged for the exit. The door wouldn't open. I yanked the handle over and over while his dragging footsteps moved closer behind me. Then cold fingers touched the back of my neck, and a raspy voice whispered into my ear, "Do you remember me?" Everything inside me froze. My knees gave out. The world collapsed. And suddenly I was back outside in the present, kneeling on the sidewalk. People stared at me like I was having a panic attack. Some stranger asked if I needed help. I lied and said I was fine, but I wasn't. Because now I understood something horrifying. The visions weren't dreams, and they weren't hallucinations. Something was dragging me backward into my own past, and whatever that thing was, it knew me. The next day I passed the playground outside my apartment complex. Workers were replacing the old equipment with newer structures, bright plastic slides, fresh rubber flooring, completely different from the playground I remembered as a kid. And the second I thought about those old memories, I made a mistake. The vision pulled me in immediately. One second I was an adult, the next I was 12 years old again, sitting on a swing at dusk. I looked down at my small legs, blue sandals, a bracelet made from colorful beads. Back then I'd lied and told my friends it was a gift from a boy. The memory felt painfully real. I hopped off the swing and headed toward my apartment building. Then suddenly, someone grabbed my wrist. I looked up and saw him towering over me. His grin stretched wider. "Do you remember?" he whispered. I tried to pull away. His filthy fingernails dug into my skin. Pain shot through my arm. I screamed. The bracelet snapped. Beads scattered across the concrete. I finally broke free and ran. Blood streamed down my wrist. As I stumbled into the apartment building, I heard him laughing behind me. Then the vision ended. I was back in the present, breathing hard. Workers nearby stared at me. I looked down at my arm. The fresh wounds were gone, but thin white scars remained. Old scars, long healed. I ran home and showed them to my mother. She barely reacted. "Oh, those?" she said. "You got scratched outside when you were little. You came home covered in blood." I asked if I'd mentioned a strange man. She frowned. "You used to make up stories constantly." That answer terrified me, because the scars existed, which meant the memory had changed. And if the past could change, then maybe the present could too. That night I tore apart my childhood memory box. Old notebooks, bracelets, photos, toys. The broken bead bracelet should have been there. It wasn't, because in the new version of the past, it had shattered on the apartment steps while I escaped that thing. That was when I finally understood the truth. The man wasn't just appearing inside memories. He was changing them, rewriting them. And somehow those changes were bleeding into the present. Every altered memory included the same thing. The locket around my neck, that was the connection. That cursed object had marked me somehow. And now the man could follow me through my own past. I returned to the library tunnel, searching for the locket. It was gone. Of course it was. Because somehow, it no longer existed in the present, only in my memories. I knew how insane that sounded, but deep down I could feel it. If I wanted this nightmare to end, I had to destroy the locket inside the past itself. The problem was remembering. Every time I entered a vision, I became my younger self again. The emotions, the fear, the confusion, it all felt real. I kept forgetting my plan, and the man was getting more aggressive. Then, one night, the worst vision happened. I remembered being sick as a child. The moment the thought crossed my mind, I was there, burning with fever beneath heavy blankets. Sweat soaked the pillow. Every breath hurt. The bedroom door creaked open. At first I thought it was my mother, but then he stepped inside. The man moved silently toward the bed. In one hand he held a rusty folding knife. My child-sized body froze in terror. Then finally I remembered. The locket. I grabbed the chain hanging around my neck. I tried pulling it over my head. The man opened the knife. Slowly, smiling the entire time, I yanked harder. The chain tangled. The knife rose into the air. I screamed and rolled off the bed just as he lunged, and instantly the vision shattered. I was back in my apartment, crying, hyperventilating, because now I understood his goal. He wasn't haunting me, he was hunting me, inside the past. If he killed me there, I would disappear here. Everyone would simply remember me dying as a child. The adult version of me would vanish completely, as if I had never existed. The next evening, I came home to an empty apartment. The hallway light flicked on automatically, and I saw something that triggered one final memory. A slightly open door, darkness behind it. When I was 5 years old, I was terrified of open doors at night, especially doors leading into dark rooms. The second I remembered that fear, I was pulled backward again. I became 5 years old, tiny, alone, standing in the hallway of my childhood apartment. The old wallpaper, the old furniture, everything enormous around me. Ahead stood the partially open bedroom door. Blackness filled the crack. Then, slowly, his face emerged from the darkness. The swollen skin, the ruined grin, and the knife. I screamed and ran. My sandals slapped against the floor as I sprinted toward the kitchen. I slammed the door behind me and pressed my tiny body against it. Footsteps approached, slow, dragging. Then the door opened effortlessly. He stepped inside, and finally I saw it. The locket hanging against my chest. This time I remembered. This thing is the anchor. Destroy it. I grabbed the chain. Pain tore across my neck as I ripped it free. The locket hit the floor, and I stomped on it. Again, 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 until it cracked apart beneath my sandal. The sound echoed unnaturally loud. Then everything stopped. The man froze. The knife froze. The entire world became silent. Cracks spread through reality itself. The walls distorted. The floor dissolved. And the man began falling apart. His body split into pale fragments that drifted away like ash. His smile disappeared last. Then everything vanished. I opened my eyes. I was back in the present, standing in my apartment hallway, adult again, alive. The itching in my throat was gone. I rolled up my sleeve. The scars on my wrist had disappeared, completely, as if they had never existed. I think I destroyed whatever had attached itself to me. At least, I hope I did. Because sometimes late at night, when I walk past mirrors in dark rooms, I still catch myself wondering something. What if he remembers me, even if nobody else does? For weeks after that, I tried to convince myself it was over, and for a while, it almost felt true. The anxiety faded. The scratching stopped. I could finally sleep again without waking up in the middle of the night, gasping for air. No more visions, no more memories twisting themselves apart, no more glimpses of that face. Life slowly returned to normal, at least on the surface. But something inside me had changed permanently. Because once you realize the past can be touched, rewritten, infected, you never look at memory the same way again. Every old photograph starts to feel suspicious. Every childhood story feels fragile. I became terrified of remembering things incorrectly, terrified that maybe some memories weren't really mine anymore. And the worst part, I had absolutely no proof any of it happened. No evidence, no witnesses, nothing except a feeling deep in my stomach that refused to leave. Sometimes I'd sit alone at night, trying to remember my childhood as clearly as possible. Not the scary parts, the normal parts, birthday parties, school trips, Christmas mornings, simple things. And every single time, I'd feel fear creeping in behind the memory. like something was standing just outside the edge of it, watching, waiting. I stopped looking through old family photos. I stopped visiting places connected to my childhood. I even stopped talking to relatives about old memories because hearing certain stories made my chest tighten instantly, like my brain itself was trying to protect me from something or someone. Then one night, I made another mistake, a tiny one, the kind of mistake nobody would normally notice. I was lying in bed scrolling through old pictures on my phone when I found a scanned photo from my grandmother's apartment. Just an ordinary picture, the old living room, the cactus near the window, rain outside. I stared at it too long, and suddenly, I noticed something I had never seen before. Outside the window, there was a figure standing in the rain, tiny, blurry, almost impossible to notice, but it was there, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. My blood turned cold, because I was absolutely certain that figure had never existed in the original photograph. I threw the phone across the room so hard it hit the wall. My hands were shaking violently. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning I convinced myself it was paranoia, just shadows, compression artifacts, my imagination. But deep down, I knew better. Something still remained. Maybe not fully, maybe weakened, but not gone. Because the man had changed too many memories, too many pieces of the past. And maybe some damage couldn't be undone. Maybe some doors stay open forever once something walks through them. After that, I started noticing other things, tiny inconsistencies, childhood events I remembered differently from everyone else, photos missing from albums, conversations my mother swore never happened. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. Then I remembered something terrifying. If the man could rewrite the past, how would anyone notice? Their memories would change too. Reality itself would simply rearrange around the new version. Nobody would question it. Nobody except the person being hunted. Sometimes I wonder how many people have already disappeared that way, erased completely, not murdered in the present, removed from history itself. Maybe there are families out there missing children they don't even remember having. Maybe entire lives have already been rewritten around us, and maybe the only reason I survived is because I destroyed the anchor before he finished whatever he started. At least, I think I did. A few months later, I went back to the old library tunnel one final time. I don't even know why. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I wanted proof that everything had really happened. The tunnel looked exactly the same. Wet concrete, leaking ceiling, that smell of mildew and cold stone. People still avoided it. I walked slowly toward the spot where I'd first found the locket. Nothing was there, just dirt, trash, dead leaves. I almost laughed at myself. Then I noticed something scratched into the wall beside the tunnel exit. At first, I thought it was graffiti, but when I moved closer, my stomach dropped. The words looked fresh, as if someone had carved them recently with a knife. 3 simple words. Do you remember me? I backed away immediately, heart pounding, because underneath the sentence, someone had carved a small oval shape. A locket. I never went back there again, and I never told anyone the full story. Because how could I? What would I even say? That something crawled through my memories wearing a dead man's face? That my past became infected by a cursed object? That I nearly stopped existing? Nobody would believe that. Sometimes I barely believe it myself. But every once in a while, usually very late at night, I wake up with the strange feeling that someone is standing beside my bed, watching me, breathing quietly in the dark. And no matter how terrified I am, I never look, because deep down, I'm scared of what might happen if I recognize the face staring back at me. Or worse, if it recognizes me first. About a year passed after that, long enough for the fear to dull around the edges, long enough for me to almost feel normal again. I graduated college, moved into a different apartment, started building an ordinary life, and eventually, I stopped thinking about the man every day. That was the dangerous part, because fear keeps you alert, comfort makes you careless. It happened on a rainy Thursday night. I remember that specifically because the sound of rain still makes my stomach turn now. I had fallen asleep on the couch with the television on. Sometime after midnight, I woke up suddenly. No reason, no nightmare, just that horrible instinct that someone else was in the room. The TV screen had turned black. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and from somewhere deeper inside the apartment, I heard footsteps, slow, dragging. My entire body locked up instantly. The sound came again, one step, pause, another step, like someone limping through the darkness. I grabbed my phone from the coffee table with shaking hands. No signal. That made no sense. I stood up slowly and listened. Silence. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Then I noticed something hanging from the hallway doorknob. A chain, thin silver. My blood went cold. I didn't want to walk closer. Every instinct screamed at me not to touch it. But I already knew what it was. The locket. Impossible. I destroyed it. I watched it crack apart. I watched that thing disappear. So how was it here? The hallway light flickered weakly overhead while I stepped closer, inch by inch. The necklace swung gently from the doorknob, back and forth, as if someone had just placed it there seconds earlier. Then I heard breathing, very close behind me, wet, uneven. I froze. Every hair on my body stood up, and slowly, something cold brushed the back of my neck. A voice whispered beside my ear, "So, you do remember me?" I spun around. Nothing there. The hallway was empty, but the breathing continued. Somewhere nearby, hidden, watching. The locket suddenly dropped from the doorknob and hit the floor with a metallic clink. The sound snapped something inside me. I ran. I didn't even grab my keys. I bolted out of the apartment barefoot and sprinted down 6 flights of stairs while the lights above me flickered violently. The entire time. I heard footsteps following me above, not behind me, above me, like something was crawling along the ceiling directly overhead. By the time I reached the street, I could barely breathe. Rain soaked through my clothes instantly. I turned back toward the apartment building, and high above me, inside my apartment window, I saw a silhouette standing perfectly still in the dark, watching me, smiling. I never went back inside, not that night, not ever again. The next morning, I paid someone to collect my things while I waited across the street inside a diner. When the movers came back down, one of them laughed nervously and asked me something strange. "Hey, was somebody else staying there with you?" I felt my stomach tighten. I asked why. The man shrugged. Saw some weird scratches all over the ceiling in the hallway. Looked fresh. Then he paused. And there was this smell in the apartment. "What kind of smell?" He frowned. "Like something rotten." I never told him what I already knew, because deep down, I understood something horrible. Destroying the locket didn't erase the man completely. It only broke his connection to my past. But now, after all those years inside my memories, maybe he remembered the way back. I moved 3 states away after that, changed apartments, changed jobs, changed everything I could, and still, sometimes I notice impossible things. A figure reflected in windows behind me, a face disappearing inside crowds, wet footprints where there shouldn't be any. Once, I woke up with scratches on my neck so deep they bled onto the pillow, and sometimes, late at night, I hear the dragging footsteps again, always above me, never below. I started sleeping with every light on. I stopped keeping mirrors in my bedroom. I stopped talking about my childhood entirely, because memories feel dangerous now, like doors that can open if you stare at them too long. And lately, I've started forgetting things, small things at first, names, dates, conversations, but sometimes bigger things disappear too. Entire moments from my life, gone, like someone reached inside my head and cut pieces away. That's why I'm recording this story, not because I think anyone will believe me, but because if one day I disappear, if people start remembering me differently, if my life slowly rewrites itself around everyone I know, then maybe this recording will survive. Maybe proof matters. Maybe memories can leave scars even after they change. Or maybe none of this matters at all. Maybe the moment I picked up that locket, my life stopped belonging to me. Sometimes I still think about my grandmother, about the things she used to say. There are people born with an instinct for evil. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe evil isn't born at all. Maybe it waits, patiently, quietly, for someone curious enough to pick it up. And if you ever find an old silver locket somewhere it doesn't belong, don't open it, no matter what you hear inside, no matter whose face you think you recognize. And if someday someone asks whether you remember them, lie.